And it's just, you can call me Corny if you like. What else are we going to do? All right, I'll just give you a brief outline. The subject of today, by the way, is converting dead soil into live soil via humanure. And by humanure, I mean our own human poo. And we're going to talk about the problem at the moment on Earth in regards to soil, the degradation of soil. I'm going to talk about an experiment I've been trying for the last 7 years just to see if we can do something with that and using humanure, my poo, and the results of what that's been like and what's happened to it, and being tested and everything by labs and stuff as well. So we'll get underway, I guess. By the way, you can ask any questions if you like along the way, or I might leave a fair bit to the end, because what I'm going to do is probably shorten a fair bit of what I'm going to give you down, and then just let you guys ask questions, because then you can ask me exactly what you want to do, and I won't be giving you information you don't want to hear. So hopefully that'll work. We'll see how we go. Yeah. So first we'll start with the problem. Everything that lives needs 3 different things to survive. Do you know what those 3 things are?
Oxygen.
That's it. We'll give that a
Water.
give a bit on Earth.
Water.
It's on Earth, yeah. Water. Well, they do need oxygen for sure. Even oxygen and water too.
Yeah.
Any two more?
Shelter.
Carbon.
Shelter, yeah. If you think about yourself, this is what you need. You're one of these living things on Earth.
Food.
Food, of course. You're in a cafe. All right. And all these things on Earth, our little planet, they're all found around this crust, pretty much right here, within about this much space. All the essential needs for life are found in about the first 150 mil of soil. And why is it that? I'll just tell you why in a second. This is called the topsoil layer, by the way. It's, I'll draw another picture a bit closer up than that one of what we've got. Okay, green, I like green. I don't like green, it stays on the board too long. Let's wipe it off. So we've got that's our earth crust, our ground, and you've got this topsoil layer, which is, about 150 mil of the thing, and then there's subsoils and there's other bits under there, and bedrock eventually. And in this layer, which our trees come from, we've got little bushes, we've got grasses, we've got mycelium, mushies. What else? We've got this heaps of stuff down there. In there, there's branches and twigs and leaves and stuff everywhere, all on there. This layer is important because it's what is where all the health comes from. The health for all these plants to survive, all the stuff that's living on top of that earth, like us and animals, to survive. And it's also where all this activity in here. There's so much activity. I think there's the most amount on the earth is in this area. There's tons and tons of things. You know what sort of things live in here? Any idea what sort of things might be in there?
Worms.
Worms, yeah. Anything else? Microbe, yeah. Fungi, yeah.
Rhizomes.
Yep.
Insects.
The insects, yeah.
Bacteria.
Yep. There's all this life in there. It's just chock full of life. And this life actually is where it's essential for the planet to stay alive. Actually, this section of soil, the 150 mil, very small, isn't it? It's very important though. It keeps the life on the planet surviving. So how is this made actually? It's not just there all the time. It just doesn't exist sort of from nothing. All this matter here, all this matter that's on top, anywhere above the earth, gravity's going to drop it to the ground. And eventually when it dies, like when I die, where do you think I'm going to go? Straight to the ground. So all this layer along here is full of all this dead matter, or what you call waste matter perhaps. And all these little guys down here, they're like little workers, and they constantly gobble up all the waste matter and then convert that back into nutrient-rich food that all these trees can live off. So it's a life cycle that continues there. And where will I go into next with that? I won't go into too much, but what they do is actually they break down all the matter into such a form. It's called humus. I don't know if you heard. That's not that dip stuff you get from the shop and eat. It's composted material. This material that's here, the dead matter, has been broken down so far that it can't be broken down any further. And it's a substance that's sort of like it's actually science can't describe it, so I'm having trouble already. It's almost a jelly-like substance. It's a slimy sort of substance, but it's got some remarkable qualities too, that it can absorb up to 90% of its own weight in water. So it's actually like a massive sponge. It actually attracts all the nutrients and chemicals and minerals and stuff, that just everything. It attracts them and bonds to the humus, and then that bonds to soil particles, so they can be released in time, where they don't. Even in a rain, they don't just wash out. They stay there for up to 100 years. They can just stay locked in the soil. There's so much remarkable things about humus. That's what we're trying to create, and that's what these guys create. This gives us our life, gives everything its life. It's just, I'm just too blown away. I can't talk about it too much, so I've got to keep going with it. What happens is, though, what happens when that happens? No longer is there any shelter. No longer is there any food. No longer is there water holding capabilities in that area. So what do you think happens to all this life in here?
Die off.
It either dies or moves across to another area
Where's next
where there's none, or it goes into dormancy, waits for the area to be recorrected. Like it might have had a fire going through there and it'll come back up perhaps, but if it's, often this is all caused by man's activities, especially with our farming practices, and in regards to food in particular. We've been destroying a lot of this to put other things on top of the land and try and eat the things on top of the land like meat. It doesn't really work that well. We've got to be eating from this area down here. This is where all our nutrients for our own life come from too. That's why the multi-vitamin industry does so well, because we're not getting our vitamins from the soil, and everything there is what we need. We're not getting that anymore, and we're resorting to like false methods of like hydroponics doesn't get the soils, the minerals from the soils, using chemicals on the soils just to grow things now, because the soils have become so dead, because there's no life left in the soil anymore. Nothing will grow. And so they've had to start mucking around with seeds to try and, genetically engineering them to try to make them grow. They've been putting mass fertilizer on the ground to try and just get things growing. You can pretty much put fertilizer and put the seed in sawdust and do the same thing, it'll grow. It's not the soil that has any life anymore. And this is a big problem. And the soil's become like this for so long, over the last 60 years, since the population growth has just skyrocketed. It's gone. I'll just show you a really quick graph. If this is the year 1000, this is the year 2000. The population was just steadily climbing, then around the 1950s, 60s, just went up like a hockey stick. And in that time, that short period, in 60 years, it's doubled. Which is massive. So that's put a huge demand on the earth to supply our food supplies. And it's also and if our food supply, the method we've been using, is incorrect, it's going to put a massive pressure on our water supplies too. Which it has done, as we're finding out quite now. It's interesting though too, if you're doing something that's out of harmony with a loving way, if you're doing it on a small scale, no one really notices that much, but when you start ramping up the scale of it, it becomes quite evident. You start having effects. And the effects we're getting now is the problem with dead soils, and also a problem pretty recently is lack of water. This soil used to be able to hold water really, really well, like a sponge. So where am I up to now? Oh yeah, just lost my picture, sorry, got to draw it again. When we've got that soil there, all the life's gone out of it, it's become dead soil. It now has like impact from the sun hitting it, which just bakes that soil. It becomes so hot and dry that any moisture that is left in it, or anything activity it's just completely gone. It can't survive in that. It's actually working in Western Australia and in the mines, and there's a guy come over from Canada. It's minus 40 when he left. It was plus 42 or something where we were working, and he hit the ground because he got sunstroke and he died. It took him 5 minutes for his brain to cook. The ground was 72 degrees. Yeah. So that's how hot the ground can get. Nothing can survive in that, not even a person. We can handle it up here because we're not down in the heat down there. So life can't be supported in this area anymore. So we've got a dead situation. And then also there is still soil there, but they're so dry that the wind blows it off, the rain hits it, and because it it's got nothing to absorb it. It just ends up running off to the lowest point, and it drags anything that was good off that soil, anything that might still be there, like any organic matter is just going to go with it too, because it'll be lighter than the soil. So I've got a big problem going on. Yeah. And so it's time to start giving something back. So it's been taken from a long time, taken from the earth for a long time now. It's time to give something a shot, something different, trying to give something back. That's what love would do. Love always gives. So it's a more loving direction to take rather than just taking. So we've sort of talked about the problem a bit. Let's talk about the experiment. So from, when was it, years ago? About 7 years ago, I moved onto a property, a bit later than that, earlier than that. Didn't have any facilities there, so, and I've always been a bit of a keen gardener too. I'm interested in soil and plants and everything. I like eating too, so that's part of it. I decided I was putting manure. Is anybody else gardening here, by the way? Does gardens? Yeah, so you probably know the benefits of manure on gardens. Yeah. And I always wondered, sort of think, I was chucking it on mine, and then wondering, like, why don't we use our own? Because it's sort of essentially the same as like an animal. Like, they eat food, goes through their system, it comes out the back, and it's pretty good. And so I thought, we sort of made it very similar, so I thought we can't be that much different, so why don't we use it? And so I just figured, I might give it a crack. I'll have a shot and see if I can actually use some of it. I didn't want to just keep flushing it away, so I just going to put a toilet in, had a pipe work in there, and then I thought, I'll make a composting toilet with worms. And then I realised that if I was going to make something for myself, something that hasn't been made before, there's a few like criteria I wanted to stick to in making that thing too. So I was going to make a composting toilet that was a bit complicated. I realised if something goes wrong with the toilet and it's too complicated, that means I'm going to end up elbow deep in shit. So I thought, no one likes doing that. Even plumbers don't like doing that, and they get paid for it. So one of the criteria was to make it, what was it, very simple. I think I wrote down. Yeah, very simple. And have as least amount of working parts as possible. So there's more working parts, more things can go wrong. Anything that has maintenance, try and cut that out completely. What to do next? Another thing I really wanted to not have from this toilet was no smell. It was one of the big put-offs with composting type of toilets is just, the stinkiness. Even some of those ones I've walked into in national parks, I've walked straight back out and gone in the bush. Much pleasanter, more pleasant. It has to have material that will absorb, like a covering material that covers your poo, because that's how we get rid of the smell, by covering it. And it's on absorb any liquids in the that come at you. You've got to have a little bit of a pee when you have a poo, don't you? So it's going to come out no matter what. The stuff that I want to cover it with also has to have a variety of materials. Because if you noticed, I don't know, I spend a bit of time sometimes in the bush and like in rainforest, go and have a look and just sit there and just see how, because I want to create a rainforest on my property, and there's nothing like a rainforest at the moment. It's dry, hard soil, even like there's something, just bare soil for 40 years since it's stopped being farmed. Nothing's grown back in that time. And I thought, how do I get from the rainforest to that? So just looking up in the rainforest and just observing, like, the great architect, God, like I'm a builder, and I love architecture, so he's my favourite architect. So I've been checking out like what does he create it, and like how did he do stuff? And so if I just follow that and mimic the same ideas, I might come up with the same result and give it a shot. So that's where a lot of this inspiration's been coming from, just by observations and seeing what's been done for millions of years and it's worked. If I can just recreate it, it might work too. So the variety I noticed when I was in the bush was up in the forest, there's a lot more different trees and everything. So every time there's different material that needs broken down, there's always a different species of something that will break it down. So if I can attract more life, if I can attract a multitude of life into the system, it becomes more healthy. Rather than just one thing breaking something down, it's not as healthy. The more I can get in there, the better. So if I can use a variety of material, that means I'm going to get a variety of life coming into the system. What have we got next? So I wanted to use waste material. Oh, this is hard writing sideways. Sorry if that looks terrible, I can't see it from the side. I wanted to use as much waste material as I could too, because like that's what's being used naturally, just natural waste too, not like other stuff. But if we could use things like anything that's just organic waste is going to work. Something will break it down. That's what they're designed to do. In fact, I haven't sort of said it, I should have said it before, that these guys that do all this work on the ground surface there, the whole animal kingdom, if you think about it, are actually, they're like the maintenance system workers for the planet, and you've got to keep them like in good condition. You've got to give them food, you've got to give them shelter, you've got to give them water, because they're actually the ones that keep us healthy. A lot of people don't realise that. They're the ones that keep the soil healthy, the propagation healthy, they keep trees alive, they move seeds around and everything. We don't do all that, they do it all for us. We just take it for granted and just reap the benefits without giving anything back. So if I can get variety in there, as many of these guys in there, the workers in there, I want the workers in there with skills, and they come and use as much of this waste material up as possible, because that's their job. I want the product to be accessible. In other words, the final product that ends up through this system, I want to be able to use it. I don't want it just to sit there and do nothing. I want to try and put it in areas where it needs it, so I can start fixing up areas like broader than just a little garden. And the other part I wanted to do is make it a dry system. I didn't want to use water. It just seemed like a waste of good water just to like, have a crap and then good drinking water flushes it away. I think people are starting to realise that we do need water pretty badly, and our use of it is probably not as efficient as it could be. But it has been efficient for thousands of years. The Romans, or 2,000 years, the Romans first started using that, and it helped a lot of humanity work things out. But now maybe we have to have a little bit of a rethink. So flushing are a really good resource that everybody can contribute to. That could help the planet, really. So I wanted this, the system was sort of like to make using dirt or dead soil or dead material, waste material, become the carrier for the poo to get to somewhere the soil life can start fixing up, rather than using good water, taking poo somewhere where someone's got to deal with the poo and someone's then got to deal with the polluted water. So it doesn't help us two parts that aren't good, and I thought, if I can deal with my poo and actually make something out of it, there's two parts that can be better, that can benefit the planet. So that was the plan anyway, and I'll just show you right here. That's pretty much it. That bucket, it's pretty clean inside, huh? That's been, I did some calculations this morning, and I've used that. That's been used 63 times already. Not a stain in it, except for the original stain where someone's used it for concreting. It ends up being pretty simple. It's just pretty much, but no, I don't know if you can see back there. I'm like, I stand right over here so you can see. Got the crap in the distance.
You can demonstrate.
It's pretty much just like that. Read a magazine like people should, sort of thing. Then I've got just I carry a little bucket. I use a little bucket where it's positioned. Then just use a soup cup. It's a nice broad sort of cup. It's quite deep. It's quite big. It's got a handle, so you don't even get your hands in any dirt or anything. And then just chuck it to cover over your deposit, really. And that's it. And if there's any smell at all, ever, which it barely ever is, that's because you haven't got enough compost material on it. That's all. It's that simple.
So
yeah,
what's
great.
that you've got in there?
I'll show you in a minute.
Corny, I found if you use a bigger bucket, that small bucket, and then you have a bigger bucket around the outside supporting the seat, you're less likely to tip over.
What, that one? Oh, you mean
No,
broader?
a bigger diameter one, so you have a smaller one inside the bigger bucket.
Oh, yeah.
Because a few people have sort of overbalanced a bit on it, on a little one like that.
I don't do it that crazy, but
well, for visitors and things like that.
Yeah, you're not used to it, I guess.
It's nice to have it a bit bigger, so it's less.
Yeah, no, it's good if you can get buckets that big. It'd be great. But,
yeah.
I was going to do something else too while we're sitting down and show you, like, what I've used. You asked me a question. Yeah, what was it?
Wouldn't that be like, similar system to the Thunderbox system?
Yeah, pretty similar.
Just
They never put any covering stuff on it though.
Yeah,
it used
Did
to be
they? Oh, yeah.
sawdust or dirt.
That's what I noticed for sawdust ones. They did this. They made it smelly.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I remember when I was a kid in grade 2, we had these a fish tank with all sawdust in there with mice in there, this little mice thing, and I used to hate it because it used to stink because the smell of the urine stayed in the sawdust.
Yeah.
It didn't come out, and I noticed that soil in particular, you can use soil to cover up really bad smells, like a decomposing sheep once working on a tree planting job, and this smell was coming as we were approaching towards that area, and eventually found this sheep was pretty nasty. One of the guys just got a shovel and chucked soil over it, gone instantly. I thought, I'm onto that. That's what I want for my system, something like that. And I noticed that soil was the one that helped with that. And so what I ended up having too, when I got a lot of this mulch from the tip, just the green waste that had been ground up and everything, and then composted down by heat. I thought it was great for the garden, looked good when it was sort of wet, but it dried out and it become almost hydrophobic actually. Put water on, I just like ran off the sides and going, you shouldn't me. And so I ended up thinking, well, I had these piles sitting there, and they've been sitting there for 7 years now, and not one weed is grown in them. But it's organic material, so it's something should be able to use that. It's good. All I need to do is attract these workers into it. And the way I was trying to do it was give them some food. So I put some food into the system, into the dead soil, and I put some shelter into where they got to go and produce all that stuff, and I keep the soil moist, and it'll break it down, and that's what's been happening. So I've been converting this dead soil now into good soil. I'll just give you an example of that too. So we've got these little things here for, so work out which ones we want. I've just got some little sticks there if you want to have a little play around in the soil, but they're just what's that? So, yeah, don't taste them. I actually had to go and buy a box of Magnums to get some sticks the other day for this. That's what I'm claiming anyway.
Pretty poor excuse, Corny.
Things you got to do for science, eh?
So what I
could have given you some.
No, I'll go for mine.
What is this then?
Beg pardon?
What is
Oh,
that?
sorry, that's the dead soil. That's the material that's the green waste from the tip that I tried using as garden stuff, but just nothing would grow in it. And, yeah. And I worked out too that
I bought some topsoil. I bought some garden soil. Same deal. It just runs off. Just water won't go into it.
I worked out with that. So I wanted to do an experiment to find out. So I just replicated what they did compared to what God does. I replicated what they did, and they used heat composting to break it down. So I made a massive heap, composted down over a month, and had the same result. And I realised, I know what's going on, because there's no life breaking it down. It's using heat to break it down. All life gets the hell out of there because it can't survive. And the guys that break it down, the natural guys, little working team, or soil activity, soil life, when they break it down really properly into this really good product that actually things will cling to, the roots will grow into.
You know, potting mix will do exactly the same thing if you let it get dry.
Yeah. That's the problem. It's missing the soil. The soil creatures do all the work.
I came to the conclusion that it's the bacteria that's in the soil. When it gets really dry, they exude something so that they can make use of what water's in the soil.
Possibly, I don't know.
So the soil becomes water repellent and pushes the water into the bacteria that are there to keep them alive.
Yeah, I wonder if it's electrical charges too, because I noticed that what's the stuff? The humus stuff has a different charge than the soil. I think it's a negative charge, quite a strong one. Yeah, but anyway, I'm still thinking about that one myself too.
Because the interesting thing is that once you get it wet,
yeah,
you know, it's water repellent initially, but once you get it wet, it'll absorb lots of water.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed too with this system too. Because that stuff was dry, I was using it in the thing first, but then it wasn't absorbing any of the moisture, and I need to achieve this. And so that's when I started using variety of different waste materials. I started putting in, let's send the next one around. This is pretty much what goes in at the moment, only because that's what I've just found. It's just the same material, same tip mulch stuff. It's just some grass clippings that I get from somebody, because I got no grass. I used to have to be a bit of a trawler at the tip. I'd sort of wait till it rained in the area, and about a week later I'd go down the tip and get all the grass clippings, because I knew people would be mowing their lawns. So that's where I got the grass from, because there's no grass on my property.
It's also too what you eat. If you eat a lot of fatty food, your human waste is different than someone that eats.
Because I haven't tested it on the vegan diet, which is me, so I don't know what it's like for other people, so it could be interesting. But there might be a certain insect soil guy, the workers, that might do all that, because everything's got to get broken down eventually. It's been designed that way, especially natural sort of things. Oils are sort of natural. Just see, making sure I'm staying there. Yeah, this all goes through. Eventually the bucket fills up. Or 3/4, don't let it get right to the top. And then I take it down to a little worm farm. I was going to compost it down there, heat compost it, but then after realised that heat composting is bad. Don't do that. It's going to kill everything. So just let it sit out in the weather. And I don't know why, I just decided to do this. I just let it sit out in the weather for about a month. And then I noticed that what was been happening over a period of time, as I was letting it sit there for a month, all these insects are already attracted to it. In summertime, there's more insect activity. By the time I chucked it into the worm farm, there was no poo. It was all gone in a month. I'd already broken it down before the worms had even got to it. The only reason why I got the worm farm is because worms really like poo. I thought if I can get them to work through the soil and everything, they can sort of inoculate the soil, the dead soil. And so, back to the story, the bucket sits there for about a month. Yep. Then after a month, I tip it into the worm farm. The worm farm's just made up of an old bathtub, more waste material I've just used. Sits just off the ground sort of thing on some star pickets. I had to buy them. I think it's the first thing I bought. Yeah.
Is the do you close it when you let it sit for a month, or do you tip it out onto the ground?
Never close it. Yeah, always leave it open because I want to attract life to it. I don't want to try and repel life from
So
it.
wouldn't it dry out though?
It does a little bit sometimes, but I notice when I tip it into the worm farm, it's only dried out that much over a month. But the bottom part is just sort of still so moist.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes if I'm dropping one there once a month, once a week, roughly about 10 days, I go through them. I just go and give it a sprinkle with a watering can anyway, so the tops of them even have peanuts sometimes. But get a bit of moisture in there.
Have you thought about using molasses? We use molasses in our septic, and that forms a beauty crust on the top.
Yeah, no.
So that's what you're talking about there.
No, I just want to keep it dry, I think, and just trying to use waste materials or waste process to get that
I was
product.
thinking of the microbes to start chopping stuff around.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to keep it as natural as possible so anybody else, hopefully like people in Africa, just use what they've got to try and make the same thing over the bucket, I'm sure. Buckets are pretty pricey over there and a valuable source and stuff, but anything like that could work though, yeah, for sure.
A friend of mine, Corny, grew a lot of pennyroyal.
What's that again, sorry?
It's a herb, a little herbaceous plant, and they mix it with the sawdust. But you had to keep doing it, so it added more work to it, where if you could just have a good source, like you're saying, you just use the same source to absorb the smell.
You can use anything, it's just a matter of just the principles are the most important thing about just trying to find an organic material. It's going to get broken down, the animals are going to do that job for you, and that's the whole idea of the system too. But to me to do nothing except provide these three things for the creatures to break it all down. So I have to do bugger all basically. I just crap, just clean the bucket out. When it's done, that's probably about a 15-minute job sort of thing. Pretty much just end up tipping it into the worm farm, mix it around with a stick sometimes, and then I just use a watering can, just rinse the bucket out, chuck that in there. Got a brush thing, just brush the bucket out, tip that in there, close the worm farm up, and then just use a bit of detergent, like a dishwashing detergent. Just wash the bucket out, and that's where it is there. It's always quite clean. Alrighty, so that's the system. The worm farm, yeah, nothing much really happens there. Kind of sometimes in the buckets too. I've noticed that I may have sat there for a month, and if it's been raining and stuff like that, I've already got tomatoes growing out of the buckets. Buckets already got that good straight away. I haven't even put it through the worm farm yet. I don't keep the tomatoes, chuck them in there too. Yeah, but
How
just
big's your worm farm?
just a bathtub. Yeah, I've got 2 bathtubs, so I keep one. Once that starts getting full, then I stop it because I don't want to get too high. I've got a basket over there. I'll show you that. That's made up this set here. And it's just a scrap I had lying around sort of thing. I just put that, fill it up with just some horse manure or something. Put that in the worm farm, close it all over, and then keep it as dark as possible. And the worms just like come up to that and just get the worms out of there and chuck them into the new one, or gently place them into the new one. That's how I transfer them over. I do that twice. I do them once, and then because there's still some at the surface, so that's what they are. They just eat off the surface.
Is that all you put in your worm farm though, or do you also put veggies and?
No, I've got another exactly the same sort of bathtub, and I've set that up just for veggies, and that's just worms in there by themselves. I've noticed that a rat sometimes gets into that every year or two. There's a rat that he rolls up and gets into the veggie one, but I've never had them. I never had mice into the other one, the poo one. So I thought that was interesting, just noticing that too. So, and also I've noticed too. I'll show you the little thing. Yeah, I've had the veggie one producing my veggie scraps, and the veggie ones, that's gone. That's like half full, but times 7 years. my poo one, I've had full twice a year, so it's 14 times over 7 years. It's 14 times. I don't think I did the maths very good there to show it, to say what I'm going to say. Virtually, this is 28 times better than that. It produces soil quicker by me pooing. Yeah, that was, anyway, that it sort of worked out to be, it was 28 times more efficient, this one, because I got more out of it, so that means I can get more soil out quicker, whereas I've just waited for the food scraps one, and I'm still waiting for that to get full.
Corny,
7 years, yeah.
A lot of people are on some sort of drugs, not me, pharmaceutical drugs.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't be good for this system, I wouldn't imagine.
The worms would
yeah.
die.
And that's most of the population,
Yeah.
apparently. Most of the population is on some sort of drugs for something.
Yeah, they can't help us, probably.
No.
Unless there's something that, you never know, because there's lots of different things like mycelium breaks down toxic, was it radioactive stuff?
So I think,
yeah.
under my
Husks.
Pardon?
mycelium, the fungi.
My fungus.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But
Fungi.
also bacteria as well. They love kind of very toxic things. So I would assume that in the soil, actually it does all get broken down to simple, like the molecules get broken down to the, simpler forms.
Yeah.
So
God's
I think
got it pretty much in hand, I reckon. Like, there's always something that'll break
there's
something down.
always a creature.
Otherwise, just have a big pile of rubbish on there.
So this system wouldn't work in something like a national park where you've got everybody coming in.
The system's not the thing that I'm trying to sort of explain here too, 'cause I wouldn't put that everywhere either. It's just the principle behind it. What we're trying to achieve is realising we can use our own manure and it can be resulting in a good, like a humus, and so we can start fixing up the earth with the product. We've all got it too, we're all capable of doing it, so we do it every day. It's just a wasted resource.
If you've got enough diversity in the life in your system, it should break down whatever you put in it, whether it's pharmaceuticals or what.
I think so too. It'd be good to test it. That's what would be really good, just to test both on not a vegan diet, on a meat-eating diet, and be good to test it with medical stuff as well. Other
What
things
about
that people eat.
parasites? People with parasites?
If people that have parasites, or
If there's...
don't know, it'd have to be tested as well. So I've had this. We'll go into the next part results actually, because that'll sort of help a little bit.
I know
You put
pathogens.
newspaper in there at all?
Definitely, that's material. It's waste material. That's organic.
Shredded paper.
Yep, I actually used that on my worm farm recently. Usually put some bedding material in there, which is usually put cocoa peat, which I'd buy, just coconut husk. But I decided, what if there's somewhere they haven't got that sort of stuff, haven't got shops? So I ended up shredding a shitload of paper the other day. It was all my tax stuff. It was like a beanbag size thing. I thought, I might as well use that. And so I ended up just soaking some cardboard, some fluted, the cardboard, corrugated cardboard. Soak that in water for a while, put that in the bottom of the bathtub, then chucked all the shredded paper in there, then just water canned it in, and then just put the worms straight in there from that basket, and tried that, and they survived. They did well, so that works.
What do they eat?
Huh?
They eat the paper?
No, I put the poo straight on there after. And they're still in the poo, the horse poo, when they start off. I've noticed too that if you put the stuff on, the bucket of poo on too quick, because worms are top feeders, when I've dug down, eventually taken the stuff out, sometimes there's horse poo in there. I realise when there's something better up top, they'll keep going up. They don't often go back down. Unless there's nothing around, then they'll search around everywhere. So we'll get on to these results, eh?
That's using the commercial worms?
Yeah.
Composting worms, not the normal worms in the soil?
No, there's the red ones, the tigers and blue ones and stuff like that.
Because they're the surface feeding ones, the ones you get in your garden soil.
Yeah, they'll go everywhere.
They're deeper,
Yeah, that's what would be really good is to have those. But I've got so many trees around that they're starving for stuff. They'll just come and invade the worm farm and just suck everything from it. So I had to keep it all off the ground. It'd be nice to have it in the soil, so it's doing something straight away for that one little area anyway. But I want to try and spread it everywhere. I found out that too, this composting stuff, the material that comes off it, if I can found out that it even gets benefits, just like 1 litre per square metre. Put that down in the soil and cover it over, or mix it into the soil. That already has great effects. I'm going to experiment with that next, see what happens. So stay tuned. So pretty much okay. We'll go to the results then. That's learn a bit about the experiment. Just seeing what I've got in my little pack of goodies over here. That was just, I'll just give you a quick look at that. That was the mixed up, this one here that you saw before. It's the dry materials. When I mix those up, I have to put them all in a wheelbarrow, and because it's just nothing wants to get wet. It takes ages to sort of just mix them up, get them wet, and I keep them, they're sort of like that, they're moist. Then I keep them in like a bucket like that, big bucket there. Let's make up a whole lot at once. Let's keep, there's a wheelbarrow and I get about 4 or 5 of these buckets out of it, and they last for a couple of months, really. But I've noticed too that they even break down the bucket because there's some moisture present in there, and there's little things I can't see that are already breaking things down. It's already, by the time it gets to about the last bucket, it's already just almost, you can't distinguish the grass, you can't distinguish the sawdust, and it's already starting to work already, just from a bit of moisture. So moisture helps a lot. So if you can get moisture into the soil, that's our aim. Once that goes around, I'll show you what the result one is. I'll pass both the beginning one and the end result around to see you can compare them. I don't know if you want to stick or stick on it.
Yeah,
It's worth eating that stuff. So I'll take those two.
So that's what it starts like.
Yeah.
And that's what it's. Look at that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good question.
And it doesn't stink. Not long.
Like I was saying before, in a bucket, sometimes it's already done, even like almost a week. Oh yeah, actually that's good. Yeah, it is about a week.
No
By the time
smell
I
at
chuck
all.
it in there,
beautiful.
and I go to put the next bucket
That's
in.
gold.
It's pretty much all gone by then. It's not a zero. In winter time, it's a little bit longer. I reckon it's probably about, well, it's about 10 days I go through a bucket, so it's about every 10 days. All right. Yeah, that sample I'm passing around is a.
So that's once the worm's gone through it.
Yeah, that's once it's finished. Yeah. And that's after it's been sitting. I've taken the worms out of there, and it's been sitting for 6 months, I think, or whenever. Not even that. Sometimes just 2 months, or whenever I want to use it. Sometimes I've been lazy and haven't used it. I think, oh, the other one's getting full. I've got to start using it up. So it can be used quite. I've used it quite quickly.
How do you get the worms out?
That's what I don't understand.
That basket. Remember I was saying? I put
The whole lot out.
Like you put that in the top.
Yeah, it's like got my bathtub.
This is such a great idea.
Something like that. I don't know. It's on some little sticks and everything. And then I put, once it starts getting full, I go and put that basket on here. And the worms come up out of the soil and start
Put
eating the
stuff in the
poo.
top of that basket.
Yeah, poo.
Put poo in the basket.
Yeah, horse poo sits in this.
Horse,
Yeah, horse
right.
poo, manure just sits in that thing.
And they'll come up.
Yeah,
to
they come up to that. Yeah, and I sometimes put some little sticks so that the thing's not sitting right on the soil, just sitting above, so you actually got to come up and get into it. Yeah. And when I
You
put
buy that, or you've got access to horse manure?
just down anywhere, yeah, I think $2 a bag or something like that I've just been getting. Yeah. And eventually I'm not going to be able to use that source because I'll have to stop using it because the horses won't be around, but I don't know what I'll use, maybe my own again.
I've got a few horses.
Sorry. I'll go through the results now.
What is the first one again?
The first dry one is what is that one? That's probably other than there.
That looks like your original mix.
Oh, yes, another one that's hasn't come back. That was there. That was a mixture of this stuff here, just been wetted up, and then put in buckets just to use as a covering soil for when I'm ready to poo, whenever it might be, just to make a whole stack up at once, so I don't have to make it up lots of times. Only 3 to 4 times a year, I think, and that's it.
So there's an advantage of it staying in the bucket.
Yeah, already, just because it's got water present in there. So it didn't have water before, so even that, just a little bit of moisture is going to help it. But even in the piles outside, the ones I've set out there, I think it had 138 mil of rain one time. I went and just thought, oh, that's got to get into that soil, and just scratch the surface off, it's dry. Whereas the soil is hard as rock generally, that had, I think, is nearly down 150 mil of soaking in. So it's just not good, that dead soil, doesn't do anything.
So just that product that you've wet and mixed up in the wheelbarrow, put in the bucket, do you leave that in a big heap outside, or just in buckets with the lid closed?
I leave the lid just slightly off, not like snapped on, just in case anything might want to get in there.
Yeah, right.
I try and do it, I try and attract as much as I can into the soil. That's the whole idea of the whole thing, is just to try and attract as much life in as you can, because they're going to do all the work for me. If I can get them as much in there as possible, it can be finished really quickly, and I can actually put it on the earth quicker, and things can get fixed up quicker. Yeah. So results. You asked a question. What was it? Sorry. No. What was your question again? That was what it was, yeah. I first started my first one filled up, and I got trees down in an orchard that's like in pretty harsh sort of country. And so I just started mixing. I had to water them all the time. I used to hate doing that. And so I just started mixing this in with the soil every so often. I went every 6 months whenever I had to get rid of it.
Just around the trees?
Yeah, just around. Put the mulch back, mix it in the soil that's already there, then put the mulch back on it, and give it a water, and that's it. And I walk off, and then I think I used to water it all the time. Now I barely water it at all. If it was rain, it would be like I think I water it twice a year. And when I say water, I'll go around with the hose, and I have a timer. I give it 1 minute, whatever comes out the hose in 1 minute. So it's pretty tight, because I don't want to waste time down there. It feels like, and this has actually helped me save a lot of time. I don't have to go down there like 6, 8, 10 times a year now. I go down there once or twice. Because it's just, even in the drought, there's a problem though too at the moment, because they're green and they're doing so well. Everything else is brown. So Wally was just hammering them. Everything hammers them, and it's really hard to grow them. So, so it's a good thing. I've got a good thing going, but then everything else is realised this is a good thing too. Yeah, so it's really hard to grow them at the moment. So.
And the toilet paper that goes in your bucket, the standard ordinary toilet paper.
Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed it took me a while to realise as I tip the bucket out after a month or whenever it's been sitting there, there's no toilet paper. It's already broken down, that's gone.
Depending on the brand you buy.
The brand I get, it's nice and comfortable in your butt, so it's quite good.
I can vouch for the company.
It's not like Teflon coated stuff.
That's good.
It's the best.
Support third world countries, so it's always a good one to get on.
So the first thing I did, I thought I went and used it on the trees, and that seemed to be working pretty good. And I was still a little bit sceptical of myself. Thought, bacteria, pathogens, and everything like that. And I thought, well, it's been working down there so good. I'm going to chuck it on my veggie garden, and if something happens, it's going to happen to me. I'll be the guinea pig.
Recycle.
Huh?
Recycle.
Yeah, I can put myself in there. So I ended up using it on the veggie garden. It was just brilliant. Like I put it in this crappy soil that I had there before. I never used the garden bag. It's just that crap. And started putting that in there, and it was great. I didn't have to water like summertime. Just have to water every single day, and to come home and just used to enjoy watering it. Well, then I used to start hating it. And then after putting that stuff in there, I water probably 35-degree heat, maybe twice a week now. And I survive. Sometimes I even forget, which is a problem too, because I'm so used to not having to need watering. I think, oh shit, when was the last time I watered that? And then eventually I realised when it started to die, I thought, oh yeah, that's why, because there's no moisture in the soil now, so water it up again.
So you're digging it into the veggie garden?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, mix it in. It's like a soil improver. It's not like the be all and end of all plant into it stuff. It's actually, if you spread it around, move it around, get it all in amongst everything else, it's better that way.
Have you noticed up at Boat Mountain that the animals do the mixing in with the soil?
I've never been up there, but yeah, they do the jobs.
You'll
Yeah,
see all
they're
the
the workers.
bandicoots and things. They're digging through the mulch,
Yeah.
and in the process, they're bringing up the soil and mixing it in with the
Yeah,
mulch.
they're the workers.
Turkeys that do that.
Yeah.
Turkeys and stuff.
So you're making observations of all these workers doing their job, helping everything. And that's what we're trying to aim to get into our system, and trying to also
I don't think our bandicoots are helping us with the veggie garden.
they're helping themselves, but but you got to keep them alive though too,
Yeah.
because you want them, because they are the maintenance system for the planet. So if you start looking after them.
Have you
That'd be good.
experimented with planting directly into this soil?
No, but it's already. Or have I? Can't remember. I don't think I have exactly. But I've got I suppose before it's been processed, the tomatoes are always coming out of it. And also actually in the worm tubs too, if there's any light around the edges, where it's got cardboard over the top of them and then shade cloth over the top of that, if there's any light around the edges, there's always looks like alfalfa sprouts all the way around it, but it's just all the little tomato things growing everywhere. So it could easily grow soil for sure. Yeah. I just like to spread it out so I can get more. It's like a concentrated cordial almost. It's like a bit of a concentrate.
What's
I
your
find. Sorry. Yeah.
So the soil that you put on, like your poo in the bucket, do you dig a hole to get the soil, or where do you get
No,
the soil?
it's all this stuff I had. You can do that though too. Like you can use anything dead soil that you want to revitalise.
Because we actually because we have a compost toilet at home, and we dig a hole in the ground,
Yeah.
and then everything goes in there,
Yeah.
along with veggie scraps and stuff. We sort of leave that for, I don't know, maybe a month, and then start planting stuff in it.
Yeah, it should go really well.
It does.
Anything's all this organic stuff is great for the soil. That's all it needs. It needs all that because it's all been stripped off it. So as much as we can put back, the better.
There's no hygienic reason why you put it in a bathtub first first? Or?
That's what I did on first. I just wanted to do it like that and just see the results, because I wanted to break down as much as the risk factor out of using it as possible. And as we keep going on the results, I'll let you know about that. Because eventually I used it on the garden and thought, well, there's nothing wrong with this. It seems really good. The features that come up heaps better, like compared to the shop ones, are nice and like they got body to them, like the little leaves and stuff like that, and the fruit so much nicer.
It's not hard to beat anything you buy in the shop.
It's true these days. Yeah. So it's really good. It had lots of more. It retained a hell of a lot more water, which is great because that's what that humus stuff does. So I don't have to water as much. It's drought tolerant, pretty much. I use less water now too than I did. I don't even use it for the toilets now. I've got plenty more to use anyway to water the garden. We don't even have to do that. So I end up just having the abundance of water in the end. And I thought I'd better get this stuff tested eventually. So just to be sure I'm on the right track, because it's still an experiment. I don't know if I'm fixing a problem or creating one. So end up sending them off to a lab. Sent a sample of the first stuff that was finished off to a lab. I got the results back, and they said I didn't understand a thing of what they wrote in that, so I just had to ring them up and ask them what the hell has this been. Is it good or is it not? And they said, yeah, what you've got there is grade A compost soil. Which I said, what's that mean? They said it can sell it for commercial purposes if you wanted to. It's unrestricted use.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought,
well,
sweet.
As good as you can get.
Yeah, as good as you can get. Yeah. I was asking about pathogens, said no, not a sign of any pathogens or anything in there too, so I got all that tested and got the minerals tested in it and everything.
Oh, you got to test it for pathogens?
Everything, yeah. Then I end up realising, I should have sent like the beginning sample and then the finished sample, then saw the results.
Yes.
Now on the first sample I sent off, I didn't tell them what it was. So I thought I don't want anything in their head to sort of like influence the results. You know how that can happen sometimes? Like, ew, poo, yeah. And so end up sending two samples off, the original just dead soil sample and then the finished sample, and just to see if I wanted to see a comparison between the two to see if there's much difference. And then I sent a letter too. I told the guy what I was actually doing with sample 1. This is what it is. Sample 2. This is what's the same sample that's been through this process. Just I thought it'd be interesting, and also compare the results from the first one, knowing that he knows what it is now, but they were the same, which is good. So the testing's done properly.
Where'd you send that to, Corny?
It's a lab in New South Wales in the end. I had searched around for soil people, but ended up going there for some reason.
Is that the one associated with the university in Lismore?
I'm not sure exactly. Well, it might be Lismore. I can't remember where it was now. But I ended up finding out they actually test the stuff from the tip. Oh no, they test it from the sewage farm here. They test the dry stuff. I can't remember what they call it. Cruddy stuff that ends up on top.
I just also know that worms apparently eat pathogens.
Yeah, they do.
So
yeah.
I guess it would be interesting to find out what happens when you don't give it to the worms.
Yeah, and put it into something else.
Yeah, just to show like just how magnificent that system is. Yeah, and soldier flies as well, larvae.
Yeah, something's eventually going to get to it. But
definitely.
Yeah, that's what I liked about the worm farm too. I started off with just the worms. That's all I was using it to start off with. But I ended up getting all these other things in there. There's about 5 or 6 things I can see with the naked eye, but there's so much more in the soil I can't see that are in there. They just got attracted to it. Because there's a food source, there's shelter, there's water in there, there's moisture. So they just come along anyway. I even found a frog in there one day, checking things out because there's so many insects in there. He's going, food source. Never, no ants. Because it's too moist. They don't like the moisture. They won't be in that, so they like the dry soil. Yeah, so
I've
this
even had a snake in mine because it attracts mice and rats, and the mice and rats attract the snakes.
Because mine doesn't attract mice or rats too, which is interesting.
The worm farm that I'd set up's in an old tub, but I had a hole and a drain to get the worm away. Do you still have that, or you just
I made it for that, but I noticed that too because this is like I was saying, it's broken down so much it's creating this humus product that absorbs all the water, and
so
I want it to be.
Liquid running.
I've got it all open under there for that reason, but it's barely anything that comes out of it. Yeah, even after big rains, there's a bit drips that come out. But there's not like big patches on the ground or anything like that too. I was quite surprised by that. Then I found out about humus and all this too. I didn't start here. I didn't start with this problem actually. I just started experimenting. I thought I've got to be able to use poo for something better than just getting rid of it. It's a valuable resource, I felt. So I thought, well, if God made it, it's got to be good, doesn't it? So I've got to find out what I can use it for. And the animals have been using it. I've been using theirs, so use mine. So it started off with the experiment for me. Then I ended up going to the results. And I thought, oh, this could fix a lot of problems. So I've done a bit of a different process than what I'm explaining here. Yeah.
There's another way of testing the results. What I do is I get a number of those buckets and use different mixes in each one.
It'd be good doing different mixes.
Buy a punnet of veggies
and
put identical veggies in each one and just see how they grow. And one of them is my control, and I use Searle's potting mix as the control.
You should get someone else to do the experiment because you can affect the result though too, knowing which one's the good one or which one's whatever. So
when I first started off, none of them were as good as the Searle's potting mix, but now mine's better than the Searle's potting mix.
Yeah. Did you notice what you're putting in did you improve the mix or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you put in to improve it?
I'm using charcoal as well now.
Oh yeah, that would be good.
Yeah. Make my own charcoal.
Because that's got like little pores, so there's lots of, it's like a whole stack of little circles. So much can fit in the surface area of all those little things. So much life can fit in there.
I've worked out a way to just use my wood heater to produce charcoal.
Yeah.
Because at first I was doing it in a big drum and I thought, all this heat's going to waste. Why don't I use that to heat the house in winter? So I just make charcoal over winter when I've just got my wood heater going anyway.
Yeah. I stayed up at the Bunyas a couple of weeks ago when it was really cold. I just wanted to go somewhere cold for a change. And I had the wood fire going there and I was cleaning it out when I left and I thought, I'm taking that home. The ashes and stuff like that.
What you got to do is you pull out the coals rather than the ash.
I just grabbed everything and crushed it all down.
The glowing red hot coals
they've broken right.
Is charcoal.
Yeah.
And then you just shovel that out into a big saucepan and put a lid on it and it goes out straight away.
Yeah. Or just shut the fire down. Yeah, so there's no oxygen coming in.
That doesn't work very well.
Oh, because there's still oxygen coming in.
It always manages to get a bit of air in.
Yeah, that's right.
I tried a lot of different things. You can't put it out with water because it just starts up again.
Yeah.
You just but a saucepan with a lid on it works really. Just get a big pot, put a lid on it, perfect.
Well, like a camp oven,
a camp oven.
So you were saying that you had your two tests.
Yeah.
And I don't think we got to what the results were when you seen in the two.
Yeah, that's the same results as the first one, like A-grade soil.
But the other one, of course,
commercial
was
use. No, I looked at that because I said, how do you read this stuff? And I found out where she was getting the information, how to interpret the stuff. The lab scientist lady, and she said that it's determined by the EPA, Environment Protection Authority, and that's the same. It's pretty much a US test, the same thing as them. And then there's a criteria it's got to pass in 3 different stages before it can be given a usage. And sometimes if it's just missing one thing, like if there's too much, I can't remember what the one, zinc or magnesium or something in it, if it's just a little bit higher than the rest of everything and it's in B grade, then everything goes to B grade. So it gets, if there's just one thing, it reduces your test result down. Yeah, and it tests pathogens as well. If there's pathogen in it, that moves to somewhere else, or it may be have restricted use for somewhere else as well too.
And how do the trace elements happen to get there?
I think, I don't know for sure, but I reckon it's because how these little guys break it down.
Right.
I think they are the creators of them. Somehow they're able to release them somehow from product, like from material, from straw, from something else.
From poo.
Yeah. From poo, yeah. So I just give you a good picture too. That was my little picture of the earth before, but I'm going to change that. So we eat the food, right? I don't know how to draw this nicely, so I'm just going to draw That's a steaming hot turd, by the way. I don't know how to draw it nicely.
A purple poo.
Yep. Someone's had some beetroot. And then worms in the worm farm.
They look pretty healthy.
Yeah, they're good ones, those ones.
Do you ever get like little slater type things?
Yeah, all the time. There's hard wood material, they're the ones that break that down.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And that's why that's still got a bit of that woody material in it. So that's what their job is, and that's why they're there.
Tree?
Reproduce food.
Yeah. What you got there is the cycle of life.
Food again. Food, worms, food.
Anything that's creating a cycle of life, you're pretty right on track about how God's created stuff, because everything God created promotes life. You've got our food, we poo it out, goes through the worm farms, put it back on the plants, it grows food again, just like I was saying about the buckets with the tomatoes growing out of them. They're the things I just ate not long ago, and they're already growing before we had a chance to even plant them. They're already wanting to go. So I've got a closed loop system. I never buy tomatoes anymore, they just grow everywhere. Everywhere I've chucked that soil around the tree, they're always growing out of my trees, because I put them around the trees. There's always go down the orchard and just find a whole stack of tomatoes and harvest them.
Just as a matter of interest, have you had any over winter?
Tomatoes?
Yeah.
Yeah, they come up. They don't really die off because it's been so warm here.
Had a good winter.
Yeah, I've had some come up in some soil I did recently, and they're already just about ready to. They're green at the moment. They haven't actually got red. Yeah, the plant's been going for a while.
Are they all the little ones or some of them big ones?
I noticed what's come up, I noticed through myself, through what I eat, goes through my system. The only two things that have ever come up, like from seed like that, I think, was the cherry tomatoes. Don't have the other tomatoes come up, and the grapes I love called muscat grapes. I hoe the seeds down, I can't stop eating them, so I don't spit them out. Those go through me, and they're the only two things I've noticed that come up naturally just through that whole process and back out into the garden again. I'm interested to know why other things don't, though, too.
So you don't put your veggie scraps in this?
Nah, keep that separate.
What do you do with it?
Have another compost?
Yeah, that's the other worm farm I've got that only filled up 7 years and it's only done half. Filled up halfway. Yeah.
7 years?
Yeah.
It's only half full.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of waste, eh? I must buy very economically. And I chuck some stuff out for the wallabies too. Like recently I've just been chucking stuff out that can't bother walking to the worm farm. They're pretty hungry at the moment, so I have to look after them as well.
Is there any reason why you don't put the veggie scraps in?
I just didn't, and I wanted to keep the results separate too. And because I've seen the rat in the veggie ones a lot of time, and I've had possums get into the veggie one, but I've never had them come into the poo one, which is good to keep them separate. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known that. Yeah, I don't want them going into the poo one just for health reasons, sort of thing. I don't know what health reasons, but because they probably eat something in there. Yeah, so that's the results we've got. Anyway, whenever you get a closed loop system, you're on the money of doing something right. So just in conclusion, what have I got for conclusion? So really, we've been designed as little humanure creators anyway, and we just haven't been using that resource for lots and lots, or forever just about. I think maybe in the olden days I used to use it a bit, but these days it's not considered as a resource, and we just pretty much been creating problems about stripping all the soil, not putting anything back, and this could be used to fix up the soil, make it live soil again. So if you understand, it's pretty much like I was saying before too. This system I got here, it's not the be all and end all. It's just something I've been using as an experiment for a proof of concept, and it's the principles behind it that are the important thing you need to take away from this. It's understanding that you need to attract life to the thing. You need to create these conditions for life to live in, and soil life, all these insects, everything will break everything down for you. You don't have to do a thing. It's very economical.
And you're using your urine as well in there or not?
I pee on trees because I got that equipment to do that. It's a bit easier.
But would you do that or would you not?
Pardon?
Would you use urine?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's another source of nitrogen. Yeah, it's all good. It's not toxic or anything.
It's probably got an orchard of lemon trees.
Actually, it was a bit of. I can't reach that far.
I've sort of started playing around with it just to answer your question, and I find that if I use the bucket for urine as well as poo, the bucket just gets really
it's too much moisture,
and you just need so much raw material that you fill up the bucket a day.
Yeah,
it's not worth it.
Not as much.
I used to pee into a watering can like cold nights and stuff. Didn't want to get anywhere out of bed, just about. And there's a watering can there with some water in. I just peed in it straight up first, and used to have soups. I'd be just like peeing all night or something anyway. And I noticed by the morning when I went and tipped it out, I would put water in it, but it used to have a bit of the smell in it still. And so I realised, okay, I'll put some water in a watering can first, and then just a little bit in there, just so when I do pee in there, it'll dilute it, and then go fill it up and put it on some plants in the morning, and the smell are gone then. So that worked a lot better. It's definitely useful for everything. Yeah, I've done tests on trees too, pot plants I've had, and very similar, same tree and everything. And I'd be peeing on one that was almost dead actually. I thought, oh, it's not going to hurt if I just pee on it, it'll probably die anyway. And that could come back to life and come better than the other one that was still surviving. But it's hard to know those tests. You've got to think, if I just watered it, would it have the same result? So it's a bit hard to sort of gauge things sometimes, but yeah, pee's good.
Go pee!
Yeah. So basically, we have the potential to fix these issues too. Like, everybody's waiting for somebody to fix problems up, but you're a somebody, I'm a somebody, everybody's a somebody. So you can just start anytime you want, really. It's just the principles you've got to remember. If you can start tapping into observing like how things are already created, how things already work, just understand how they work and just try and replicate that, you're going to be on a winner.
I'll go to Pony's on the way home and buy another Danny seed.
And some worms.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it from me. But if there's any more questions, feel free to fire away. Yeah.
I just wondered, what sort of compost do you put in food? Was that the tip mulch, dump mulch?
Yeah, it's this combo I had here. Was that I just ended up getting sawdust, only because I went to a sawdust mill once to get some pickets from my trees or something like that, and I noticed this big pile of sawdust. Once again, use your observations, see what's going on. And it's this huge pile of sawdust, and it's just water sort of trickling out the bottom of it. And I sort of thought, that's weird, it hasn't rained for like a month and a half or something. And I asked the guy, do you water your pile, do you? And he goes, oh no, that's just comes out of it all the time. So thinking, oh, so it does actually absorb some moisture and stuff like that. So I thought that's going in the mix. So it's just that at the moment, just heaps of this dead soil I've got, like, I don't know, 30, 40 cubic metres of it. It's good for nothing, it hasn't grown a thing, so I've been using that, trying to fix that up. And the grass clippings, just a bit of variety. Might start chucking some of my paper in and out to shred all that paper up too. As much stuff as you can get in there as possible, really. And especially if it can absorb.
Do you use leaf litter?
Not really,
Is
no.
it too
Bit coarse,
harsh?
you can break it up though, but I'll try and, the leaf litter that's on the ground, I want to let it stay there, it's already doing a job. Yeah. Don't want to take it away.
Covering the dead grass.
There is bits like have fallen on these piles, and they're in there. Don't try and pull them out or anything. Yeah.
Do you ever see black soldier fly larvae?
I used to see them in my little sort of long, skinny things.
No, they're the
Are they?
fat maggots.
Oh,
The
right,
really
nah.
big fat ones.
I haven't
They're
seen them.
amazing. They also decompose things to a level where they're commercial product now. They're making them in China and you can buy them.
Oh yeah.
But they come to my poo when I've got debosia in there, and
Yeah.
they just convert it overnight into soil.
Yeah,
It's incredible
quick.
because they work really quickly.
I have got these little on the buckets. I noticed when they've really worked down quick. There's little, I don't know if they're little eggs, little brown dots that sort of.
Yep, they
size of a
fly
match head. Yeah.
eggs. Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause sometimes little maggots that come out of them when it's been really wet, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I noticed it's broken down a lot, so I thought, oh, they're good. Years ago,
Yeah.
I'd see a maggot and go, ooh, maggot.
Yeah,
But
they're so awesome.
These days, I've seen as many of those things as like they're beneficial for us,
Yeah.
for our own health.
You live local around here, or where are you?
I'm out at Wilkesdale, which is about, where Kingaroy is.
Yeah, do you have love grass on your country?
I think that's what it's called, yeah. I think that's the only thing I've got
noticed
grown
any
there.
different? How long you been doing this for?
7 years, but I've done nothing with the property outside of the orchard part and the garden part at the moment.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if you noticed any difference where the love grass is, if you put any on it.
Nah, that's my next project. I want to look around. There's areas like grasses, tufts coming up, and there's lots of just bare areas that have been there for 40 years. And what I want to do next is start, because all the things I've done now, you only put so much of this in, then it gets to a point. It's just a feeling I'm going by. It just needs a certain amount, not too much. I think it's got to that point in the trees and in the garden beds and stuff like that now. I want to try something different, was to go around on those bare patches and put that around, like handfuls of that, and then put mulch over it. I might actually water can it first just to get a bit of moisture in there, put that on there and put mulch on there, and just see how that works as an experiment, yeah. So it's the next one.
Corny, when you say you want to get live things into the bar, how do you get live things besides worms? Do things fly in?
You do this, you create shelter, you create food, and you create water. That's the principles we're looking for. And build it, they will come, pretty much. Yeah. Just like us, we want those things too. We won't go to a house that hasn't got any water. We won't go to a house that hasn't got a roof. We won't go to a house that there's no food at. We'll go to a place that's got all these things. The principles apply to us because we're living creatures and they're living creatures too, so the same principles apply.
Even though it's a closed bar?
It's not completely closed. I've got shade cloth over it, dark shade cloth. I was going to use light shade cloth, and I realised, oh no, I've got to make it dark because that's their natural conditions. I'm going to try and mimic their natural conditions, the ground, and I get some little filtered light. That's 90% shade cloth. That's quite dark, and then I've got cardboard underneath that. This is just scrap cardboard from boxes, and that's to stop some heat getting in there too. So I remember I had a box for my washing basket for once. I think it was hot and I just stuck it over my head when I was walking back. I thought, oh, that's actually quite cool. I thought, oh, it's actually insulative, like the cardboard is. So I put that on there. Just things you do, but or don't do. But just observations from those things too. So I put that on there. But when that gets wet, like the rain goes through that, which is good. I want something rain to go through there to mimic that. It's almost like leaf litter. It's almost mimicking that. And the rain still gets through there and goes into the soil around it. And if it gets really wet, they actually start eating the cardboard anyway. And especially if I've gone away or something like that, the cardboard's wet, they'll just eat that. Yeah, so try and replicate it as close as possible to the natural conditions, and then they'll go nuts. Ooh, we're almost out of questions. Going once. Going twice. Wound up. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for your participation too.